It was the kind of house people crossed the street to avoid, but Sarah didn't cross the street. She slowed her car to a crawl, rolled down the window, and stared at the rotting porch like it had been waiting for her. Maybe it was. Maybe that was the problem. The moment she saw the crooked mailbox with the faded numbers, she felt something like recognition. She didn't believe in intuition, but the sharp thud in her chest didn't feel like fear. It felt like memory. Except she had never been here before. Red Maple Lane was a quiet cul-de-sac outside Ridgefield, the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's schedules, dogs, and drinking habits. But the last house, the one wedged at the dead end, strangled by overgrown trees, was a place no one spoke about. Even Zillow refused to load its details. When she clicked the listing, it just showed one blurry photo, half loaded, like the file itself didn't want to be seen. But she needed cheap. She needed fast. And the house on Red Maple Lane was both. $900 a month for a place twice the size of her Chicago apartment. Too cheap, suspiciously cheap, which was why she drove 3 hours just to check it out in person. She didn't intend to get out of the car. She really didn't. But then the front door creaked open. Not all the way. Just an inch? Just enough to feel like an invitation or a warning. Sarah sucked in a breath. Hello? No answer. The wind didn't even move. She stepped out. Gravel crunched under her boots. The air smelled old, like dust that had never been disturbed. She climbed the 3 wooden steps to the porch, every board bending beneath her weight. Anyone here? Still nothing. She pushed the door gently, and it swung open without resistance, like someone had oiled the hinges yesterday. But everything inside looked ancient, stale, frozen in time. She stepped into a narrow foyer where wallpaper peeled off in long strips like shedding skin. A thin trail of dirt cut across the floor, disappearing into the living room. The house was colder than outside, much colder, and it wasn't winter anymore. Hello? Her voice felt swallowed by the air. She clicked on her phone flashlight. The beam trembled. No, her hand trembled. Sarah took a few steps forward, and that's when she saw it. A shape, small, sitting in the corner of the living room. She nearly screamed, but then her eyes adjusted. It wasn't a person. It was a rocking horse, old-fashioned, wood-chipped, paint-faded. But something was wrong about it. It faced the corner instead of the room, like a child had been made to sit, facing the wall for punishment. She exhaled. Creepy, but not supernatural, she whispered. The agent hadn't shown up yet, probably stuck in traffic. She could leave. She should leave. But then she heard something, a soft thud upstairs, then a dragging sound, slow, heavy, measured. She froze. Another thud, a pause, then another dragging step, like someone with one bad leg walking across the second floor. Nope, she whispered, turning to leave. She didn't run. She walked very fast, toward the door. But the door, which had been wide open, was now almost shut, not all the way. Just enough that she knew it had moved, on its own. Her breath caught in her throat. She pushed it open and stepped outside. Immediately, warmth returned to her skin. Birds chirped. The world felt normal again. Her phone vibrated. No number. She answered fast. This is Sarah. This is Daniel from Ridgefield Realty. I'm so sorry I won't make it today, but you're welcome to let yourself in and look around. Her eyes slowly drifted back to the house. Yeah, she said quietly. I noticed. Great. Just text me if you want to move forward. He hung up. She stared at the open doorway. A normal person would get in their car and leave, but Sarah wasn't normal. Or maybe she was just desperate enough to pretend nothing weird had happened. She inhaled deeply and stepped back inside. The air felt thicker this time. She scanned the living room again. The rocking horse was still in the corner, but it was angled differently. Not by much, just slightly turned, as if acknowledging her return. Okay, she whispered. Maybe it was like that before. She walked farther in. The kitchen was surprisingly clean. Not modern, not updated, but clean. Cabinets intact. No mold, no rot. But on the fridge was a piece of paper held by a magnet. She pulled it free. It was a hand-drawn picture. A child's drawing. Stick figures. One tall figure with long black scribbles around it like hair or smoke, and one small figure holding its hand. Underneath was written in shaky letters, "Don't let IT follow you outside." Her lungs tightened. What the hell? Suddenly another sound above her. Not footsteps this time. Something softer. A whisper of movement, like fabric brushing the floor. Sarah forced herself to move. She needed to see the upstairs. Needed answers. The staircase groaned with each step. The air grew colder again. The kind of cold that felt wet, like fog on skin. Halfway up, she heard it. Breathing. Deep. Slow. Not human. Too long between inhales. Too heavy. Coming from the room at the top of the stairs. The door was closed. A faint shadow moved underneath it. "This is stupid," she whispered. "I should go." But she climbed the last step. She reached out and pushed the door gently. It swung open. The room was empty. Completely empty. No furniture. No curtains. Just dust on the floor. And footprints. Small ones. Child-sized. Dozens of them. But they weren't made in dust. The dust had been brushed aside, revealing the prints on the wood. Fresh. Recent. Leading in a looping pattern around the room. Circling again and again, as if a child had been running, around and around, for hours. Sarah backed away. No. She turned to go back downstairs, but standing at the bottom of the staircase was a silhouette. A woman, not fully visible, more like a shadow given shape. Tall, thin, head tilted slightly, like studying her. Sarah froze. The figure didn't move. The house was dead silent. She blinked, and the figure was gone. Just gone. Not walked away. Not faded. Gone between one heartbeat and the next. That was enough. She ran down the stairs, grabbing the railing so hard it burned her palm. She stumbled into the living room and reached the front door, gripped the handle, pulled. It didn't move. She twisted harder. Nothing. It was locked. From the inside. She yanked it again. The knob wouldn't turn. The air behind her shifted. The house felt alive, listening. She refused to turn around. She slammed her shoulder into the door. Pain shot through her arm. "Let me out," she whispered. "Please." The door clicked, softly, then opened an inch, like an invitation again. She didn't question it. She ripped it open and ran onto the porch. She didn't stop until she reached her car, but when she grabbed the door handle, she paused. Her eyes drifted back to the house. The front door was wide open now, completely open, like the house was disappointed she left. She got in her car, locked the doors, and started the engine. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You went inside without me." She frowned. Another text. "Don't leave without saying goodbye." A cold shiver slid down her spine. She typed back quickly. "Who is this?" No reply. She put the car in gear, but then she saw something in the rearview mirror. Something standing on the porch. A figure, tall, thin, head tilted just like before, watching her. She turned around. The porch was empty. A honk behind her made her jump. Another car was pulling onto the street. Her heart hammered. A woman stepped out, mid-40s, holding 2 grocery bags. She smiled politely. "You, the new renter?" Sarah swallowed. "No, just looking." "Don't," the woman said instantly, her face shifting. "Nobody stays long. House isn't right." Sarah hesitated. "What do you mean?" "People hear things, see things. Some say it used to be an orphanage. Others say," her voice lowered, "others say the children there didn't leave, especially the last one." The woman glanced at the house, visibly uneasy. "Whatever you saw in there, forget it. And don't ever go inside at night." Before Sarah could ask anything more, the woman hurried away. Sarah locked her car doors again. Her hands shook on the wheel. She wanted to leave. She wanted to never look back. But something stopped her. A feeling, a pull, like the house wanted her to return. And deep in her chest, she felt that strange recognition again, the one she couldn't explain. She drove away fast, but she didn't leave the lane before glancing at the mirror one last time. The front door of the house slowly closed by itself, and something small child-sized moved past the window upstairs. She pressed the gas harder, but even miles away, she felt it. Something had followed her. That night, in her motel room, she locked the door, closed the blinds, and turned on every light. Around midnight, she heard it. A faint creaking sound, back and forth, like a wooden toy rocking, like a horse moving without a rider. It came from the corner of the room. Slowly, she turned her head. The rocking horse from the house sat in the shadows, facing the corner, just the way she found it. Then it turned just a little, like acknowledging her presence. Sarah didn't scream. She couldn't. The air was too thick in her throat. The rocking horse creaked again, and then a small voice whispered behind her ear, "You forgot to say goodbye." She bolted upright, heart slamming in her chest. The room was empty. The rocking horse was gone, but on her pillow was a piece of paper, another drawing, this time with 3 stick figures, one small, one tall with scribbled black hair, and the third figure, the small one, held her hand. Underneath the same shaky letters, "You let it follow you." The small one held her hand. Underneath the same shaky letters, "You let it follow you." Sarah stared at the note as the lights flickered overhead. A soft step sounded behind her, slow, dragging, like something with one bad leg moving across the floor. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She knew she wasn't alone. She knew the house hadn't just shown her something, it had chosen her. And whatever lived in the last house on Red Maple Lane had no intention of ever letting her go. Sarah didn't sleep. She didn't even close her eyes. Every time she blinked, she saw the rocking horse turning toward her. Every time she took a breath, she felt something warm exhale behind her neck. By sunrise, she was trembling, sitting against the wall with the motel lights still on. Her phone clutched to her chest like a lifeline, but she didn't leave. She didn't call the police. She didn't run, because deep down, she already knew the truth. Wherever she went, it would follow. It already had. The motel room was too quiet, too still, like the moment before someone pulls back a curtain. She forced herself to stand and peek into the bathroom. Nothing. She opened the closet. Empty. She even checked under the bed, though she had no idea what she'd do if something stared back. Nothing. But the feeling didn't go away. Something else was in the room, not visible, but there. It clung to her skin like humidity, whispering against her thoughts. She grabbed her bag with shaking hands and left the room without bothering to check out. As soon as she stepped into the morning air, she breathed easier. Not safe, but lighter. Like the motel walls were holding something that didn't want to come out in the daylight. She drove toward town, gripping the steering wheel until her fingers hurt. Coffee. She needed coffee. Something normal. Something that grounded her. She found a tiny diner with a hand-painted sign and parked outside. Inside, the air smelled like bacon and burnt toast. People talked, laughed, lived. Sarah felt like she was floating through a world that no longer felt connected to her. The waitress smiled at her. "Table for one." Sarah nodded stiffly. She sat by the window and wrapped her hands around the warm mug when it arrived. But warmth didn't help. The cold inside her bones didn't melt. She stared outside. Red Maple Lane wasn't far. The house wasn't far. She shouldn't go back. She knew that. She sipped her coffee. Bitter, too strong. Grounding. The bell above the diner door jingled, and Sarah's stomach sank. The woman from yesterday, the neighbor, walked in. She saw Sarah immediately and froze mid-step. Her expression darkened. She walked straight to Sarah's table and sat without being invited. "You didn't leave town," the woman said. "It wasn't a question." "I was going to," Sarah whispered, "but something happened last night." The woman's shoulders tensed. "Tell me." Sarah told her everything. The rocking horse, the figure on the stairs, the shadow on the porch, the drawing left on her pillow. The woman didn't blink, didn't interrupt. She listened like someone who already knew every detail. "I warned you," she whispered. "Things from that house don't stay in that house." Sarah swallowed hard. "What is it?" The woman looked down at the table. "My name is Ellen. I've lived on Red Maple Lane for 18 years. I've seen families move into that house and run out within weeks. I've seen people lose their minds. I've seen children." She stopped, looked away. "What children?" Sarah pressed. "There was a boy," Ellen whispered. "Years ago, 5 years old, the last child who lived there. He used to play outside all the time. I would see him on the porch with that same old rocking horse. His name was Jacob. Sweet kid, but always talking to someone who wasn't there. His parents thought he had an imaginary friend. Then the strange things started, screaming at night, scratching sounds in the walls. The boy stopped sleeping. He told the neighbors. Something lived in the house. Something tall, something that whispered to him, something that dragged its leg." Sarah felt her blood chill. Ellen continued. "One night, the parents called the police. They said Jacob was gone. Door locked from the inside, no broken windows, no footprints leading out. They searched for weeks. They never found him." Sarah gripped the edge of the table. "And the parents?" Ellen's face tightened. "His father hung himself in the attic. His mother went missing 2 days later." Sarah's breath shuddered out of her. The coffee suddenly tasted like metal. "So, the house is haunted." "No," Ellen whispered. "Haunted things stay in one place. This thing doesn't. It attaches." Sarah's skin crawled. "To who?" "To whoever notices it." Ellen stared at her. "To whoever it chooses." Sarah felt her pulse in her ears. "Why me?" "Maybe you were vulnerable," Ellen said. "Maybe it liked you. Or maybe," she hesitated, "maybe it was waiting." Sarah flinched at the word. Waiting for what? To finish something, to take something, or maybe to return something it once had. Before she could ask, Ellen's eyes widened. Her face went pale. "Don't move," she whispered. Sarah froze. "What?" "Behind you," Ellen mouthed silently. Cold air slid down Sarah's spine. She forced herself to turn. Slowly, her heart slammed against her ribs. A small boy stood at the end of the diner, bare feet, dirty pajamas, hair matted, skin grayish. Not dead, but not alive. His eyes locked onto hers, wide, dark, hollow, and in his hands he held the same rocking horse drawing, but this one had 4 stick figures now. One tall, one small, one that looked like Sarah, and a new Wana, long shape behind her, scribbled in frantic black lines, like a shadow with limbs too long to fit in the frame. The boy tilted his head. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Ellen whispered, "He shouldn't be here. They never show themselves in public." But no one in the diner reacted to the boy. Not a single person looked at him. Not one head turned. It was like only Sarah and Ellen could see him. The boy lifted his hand and pointed at the window behind Sarah. Slowly, Sarah turned. Outside, standing next to her car, was the tall figure, the shadow woman, head tilted, watching Sarah shot to her feet. The boy vanished, just blinked out of sight like a glitch in reality. Ellen grabbed her arm. "Listen to me. You can't run. Running makes it follow faster." "I'm not staying here," Sarah cried. "You don't understand. No one understands," Ellen hissed, squeezing her arm tighter. "That thing ruined my life. My daughter saw it once, just once, and she hasn't spoken in 9 years. She just draws it over and over and over. Sarah pulled away. I need to know what it wants. You can't know, Ellen said. You survive it, that's all. Sarah didn't wait. She bolted out the diner door and sprinted to her car. The figure that had been standing beside it was gone. She jumped inside, locked the doors, and drove without thinking. But her hands didn't turn the wheel toward the highway. They turned toward Red Maple Lane. She didn't choose that direction. The car felt like it pulled itself, like something guided her. The houses on the street looked normal, peaceful, except the last one, the house at the end. The last house on Red Maple Lane. The door was open again, wide open, inviting or demanding. She parked and stepped out. Her legs felt numb, heavy, pulled. The wind died. The trees stopped moving. The world held its breath. She crossed the threshold. The door slammed shut behind her. The house moaned, like a long exhale. The air thickened instantly. The floor creaked. Something brushed past her legs. She jumped back. The rocking horse sat in the living room, facing her this time, not the corner. The house whispered, not in words, in breaths. Long, slow. One-legged footsteps sounded upstairs again. Right step, as if something was coming down. Sarah backed against the wall. What do you want? She whispered. Something giggled, a child's laugh, light, echoing, coming from the kitchen, and the stairs, and the walls. She squeezed her eyes shut. Stop. The laughter cut off. Silence, then a whisper. Close to her ear, too close. You came back. She flinched and stumbled forward. Her foot hit something soft. She looked down. A boy's shoe, old, dirty, small. Then she saw them footprints forming in the dust, one by one, leading toward the hallway, like an invisible child was walking. The prints stopped at the hallway mirror. She swallowed and looked into it. Her reflection stared back, pale, shaking, but there was something wrong. A small hand gripped her shirt in the reflection, but nothing touched her in real life. Her mouth fell open. Slowly, another form rose behind her reflection. Tall, thin, head tilted, long black strands dripping like wet hair across its face. Sarah spun around, nothing. She turned back to the mirror. The tall figure leaned close to her, reflection's ear, whispering, and in the reflection's eyes, she saw something she didn't feel yet. Tears, falling. The house groaned again. The reflection's mouth moved. Not hers, just the reflection. It spoke without sound. Sarah leaned closer. The reflection's lips formed for words. You belong to us. The lights burst overhead. The house shook. A scream rose, not human, not child, not woman, something layered, like multiple voices crying out at once. Sarah dropped to her knees, covering her ears. The air compressed, pushing at her chest like a weight. Then everything stopped. Silence. She stood slowly. The mirror was cracked. The house was calm. Too calm. She stumbled to the front door. It opened easily this time. She burst out into the daylight, gasping. She made it to her car. She started the engine. As she pulled away, she looked back one last time. There was someone standing in the upstairs window. A child, pale, watching her leave, holding something in its hand. A drawing. She drove until the house disappeared, but the drawing wouldn't leave her mind. The 4 figures. The shadow behind her. She pulled into the motel parking lot, except it wasn't the same motel. She had no memory of driving here. She parked anyway. She walked to her room, except her room number was different. She didn't question it. She opened the door. Inside, on the bed, lay a new drawing. Fresh, wet ink. This one had only 2 figures. One tall, one small, holding hands. She felt a cold hand slip into hers. She didn't look down. She couldn't. A whisper filled the room. "We're not done yet." Sarah felt the hand tighten around her fingers before she even turned on the lights. It wasn't warm like a child's hand should be. It was cold, flat cold, the kind that felt like it had never belonged to anything alive. The door behind her swung shut without her touching it. The soft click echoed like a coffin lid closing. She forced herself to breathe. "Let go," she whispered. The small hand didn't let go. It squeezed harder, pulling her one slow step deeper into the motel room. Her heartbeat drowned out everything else. "What do you want from me?" she choked out. A soft voice answered from somewhere behind her left shoulder. "You came back for us." Sarah's legs nearly gave out. "I didn't. You did," the voice said. Another voice joined it, higher, childlike. "You saw us." Then another, low, dragging its words like a broken record. "Now you stay." Sarah yanked her hand, free, or thought she did, but the cold sensation clung to her skin like a stain. She backed away until she felt the edge of the bed behind her knees. The room flickered. The corners darkened, shadows thickening like spilled ink spreading across the walls. The air smelled like old wood and wet dirt, the smell of the house on Red Maple Lane. She realized with a sick jolt she never left it. Not really. The motel room melted around the edges, the wallpaper peeling, floorboards warping under invisible weight. She blinked hand. The motel vanished entirely. She stood inside the house again. Same cracked mirror. Same suffocating cold. Same silence that felt alive. She stumbled backward, but the floor behind her sloped downward like the house was tilting, guiding her deeper. A soft giggle echoed behind her. She spun. A little boy stood there, bare feet, dirty pajamas, eyes hollow. "Jacob." He held out a paper toward her, a new drawing. She forced herself to look, to stick figures again. One small, one tall. But the tall one wasn't the shadow woman this time. It was her. She looked up sharply. "What does this mean?" Jacob stepped closer. "You came back," he whispered. "Nobody comes back." "I didn't come back," she said. "You pulled me here." "We didn't," he said softly. "It did." The air behind him darkened, stretched, rose upward. The tall figure emerged from the black, head tilted, limbs bending wrong, dragging one leg as it stepped forward. Sarah stumbled back, hitting the wall. The figure lowered its head toward her, not touching, just watching, waiting. Jacob's voice trembled. "It needs someone to stay with it. Someone who sees it. Someone who hears it." Sarah shook her head violently. No, I'm not staying here. I'm not." The figure reached toward her. Its shadowed hand brushed her chest. She felt it not on her skin, but inside her ribs, like fingers curling around her heartbeat. The house groaned. Jacob whispered, "You belong to the lane now." Sarah's vision blurred. The room darkened. Breath left her lungs like something stole it. The last thing she heard was the dragging steps circling behind her. The last thing she saw was her own shadow stretching across the floor, holding the small shadow of a child's hand. If you want more stories like this, make sure you subscribe for more.